Sure, if the relationship is growing, but you feel dead inside as an individual, that's not going to work.
Even in the obstacles, there's a perfection that is above and beyond me that I get to see in that.
If you can be okay being alone, you won't hang on to a relationship that isn't working, or grasp onto a relationship that is working but suffocate it.
Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Relationships. Today's episode is a really special one. I'm joined by Emily and Kelly, two incredible coaches. One's a relationship coach, one's a men's coach. And they also happen to be newlyweds. Their love story is layered, it's real, and it's full of lessons from past relationships, healing, growth, and the beautiful messiness of blending a life together. We talk about everything from green flags, early challenges, to becoming a stepmom, to combining families, and what it really takes to build a conscious partnership. I'm really excited to get this one going. Let's dive in. Hey guys, so happy to have you guys on.
Hi, Beatrice. We're so excited to be here. Thank you for having us.
Such a pleasure. Thank you, Beatrice.
Oh, I can't wait to get this conversation going, but I want to start off with asking you guys two questions. How long have you been together, and how long have you been married?
So you want me to take this?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, I'm the dates person in this relationship.
Number one rule of marriage, let her answer this question.
So we've been together for 2 years. We've been married for 6 months.
Oh, wow, I love it. So not even a full year. I'm getting you guys right at the beginning.
You are. We are fresh out of the oven. In the oven? In the oven.
We're baking.
We're baking.
We're baking. You guys are like barely at like 275, preheating, Anyways, well, I'm so excited to have you on. As people know, if you guys have been listening to this podcast, I had Emily on, I think it was season 2, if I'm remembering, or season 1. And it was such a good episode. We chatted about how real love can feel scary and can feel very opposite to what we expect it to feel like. And so I'm really excited to kind of go into this with you today, because I can't wait to hear how that has been for you as you guys have met and gone through kind of your journey. But I'd like to start off. I'd love to hear about what you guys both do. I know you guys are both relationship coaches. So if you each want to take a second to let us know what you do, what your practice is like, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. You want to go first?
No, please.
Okay. So I do relationship coaching. Human connection is really at the basis of everything that I do. I have a podcast called Room to Grow, where we have hundreds of episodes already exploring all kinds of relationships and just really digging into uncomfortable topics that a lot of people like to avoid, particularly when it comes to relationships, and just like the real, raw, authentic, genuine. That's what I'm most interested in every human, including on the podcast. And the work that I do, I work with men and women, but primarily at this point with women, really teaching them how to come into their sense of power, their sense of self, and really show up in their fullest expression. And the reason why I do that work is because I have had to do so much of that work myself. I still am always continuing to unpack new layers of that. And it's also how I lead. I'm not up here pretending to be on some pedestal like I've got it all figured out. I'm here to show anyone who wants to join me in this journey, like, hey, we're figuring this out together, and I might have a few things figured out that you don't. And I'm also going to learn probably just as much from you, if not more, than you learn from me. And I just really think that that's a beautiful symbiotic relationship of human connection. Ultimately, I think that that's really the beauty of it. And then Kelly and I also work with couples as a couple, which is super unique. You don't often see that. It is much more unusual, and we love doing it because we're all about the idea of couples supporting couples, because we're in a very individualistic society and culture at this point. And we're kind of thrown out into the wild, expected to know how to figure it out. And then you're lying in bed one night with your partner next to you, and you have never felt lonelier. And you're like, oh my God, is this normal? Is this what it's supposed to be? Like, I feel so disconnected. And then when you actually talk to another couple, they're like, hey, yeah, I've been through that too. Or this is how we figured it out. And this is the rough patch that we went through. This is how we got reconnected. And you're like, oh my God, I feel normal. Like there's just so much
Yeah.
in that where you get to relate, and it's really how we coach couples as well. And you can speak more to that too. I want to hear your thoughts on that. But there is inherent relief in the couples that we work with. They're like, oh my God, this is actually normal and it's workable. Like this is part of where we actually get to connect more deeply as opposed to growing apart. So that's really why we are both so passionate about working with couples as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I
That
love
was
that.
great.
Wow. I know. I was touched by that. I think it's so needed. And I love hearing that because I feel like we just need that. Like we need each other to grow and sometimes even just be able to step up and say, hey, I've been through that. Like there's so much healing in that alone. Just knowing that someone else can kind of carry that weight with you. And we just try to carry it all on our own. And then you're in a relationship and you're still trying to carrying it all on your own. And so I just thank you guys for doing that work.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. It is such a honor and a gift. And I do believe I came with this idea of couples supporting couples and the idea that, we are in isolation is such a challenge that we face in this experiment of an individualist society. We have gotten so much out of this experiment and we've left certain things behind that I think it's important for us to recapture and reclaim in ways that are supportive. Back in the day, we had parents who had modeled, family members that modeled long-term healthy relationships that we could go to and would be supportive we were surrounded by that. And as we've created greater and greater separations in the family structure, we find ourselves more and more isolated. And so what would it look like to really create spaces where we are held not as one up or one down, but just, hey, we're just people and we're going through it. We've got some skills or maybe one step ahead, but we're really just seeing each other, and the healing that takes place through being seen is so important. That's a large part of the work that I do. My primary work is when I'm not working with Emily, is working with men. I'm the masculine leadership coach. I work with men on, the simple way of saying is, elevating from being a little boy with big toys to being a grown man who takes responsibility for all aspects of his life and shows up in leadership as a way of modeling for other people. I run communities and groups. I have a really amazing group called Leaders Create Leaders, where we bring together men who are living life at a high level and very successful men who shoulder a great burden of life. They carry everything. They're the guys that everybody looks to for support. And they're always there for everybody else. But when they're going through struggles, when they're going through challenges, there's no one else that they can look to. And so what would it look like in a world where men who are really succeeding at a high level, who we are looking to for positive leadership, have the support to really integrate themselves, integrate their little boys into the fully grown, mature men that we need in leadership? What would it look like to really create communities? What's the ripple effect of that? And particularly my really focus, the area that really lights me up the most is working with fathers, working with men who are inherently have a ripple effect for so many more. So how can we really, one of my key goals and where I met Emily was in this passion to end the epidemic of absent fatherhood. What does it look like to really have men that are not just present in the home, but present in themselves in a way that they can provide positive leadership, they can establish a space that is healthy, that is safe, that creates the space for each and every member of their families, their communities to grow and to thrive.
Wow. You're doing the Lord's work. I'm telling you, we need so much more of that, man. I'm gonna have to have you back on, Kelly, and I would love to dive more into that because I have such a heart for that, and I think there's such a need for the work that you're doing with men. We're seeing, there's just so many stats coming out. We're just seeing a decline in especially young men happening, and it's so apparent. It's like we're seeing numbers attached to it now. It's no longer theory, and the work that you're doing is incredible, and we just need more of you. We need more of you doing these, doing this type of work. And there's just so much healing that gets done, like we said earlier, even with couples, but even men among men. Like that's where the healing is going to happen. It's going to happen within, safe space with men together, So that's incredible. We're definitely going to have to dive into that at some point. I'd definitely love to have you on because I think it's such a prevalent topic, and it's something that I think we have to talk more about, So thank you for doing that. Like, I'm so honored to have you both on. I'm like, just the work that I'm inspired by you two and the work that you're doing. But I'd love to get into talking about you two. Because we could talk about all that stuff forever. That could be a whole episode. But I would love to hear about how you both met. Because I feel like there's some good story there.
Well, the short story is we met right here on a podcast.
We did.
On her podcast.
Yes.
You want to tell the story about how that came about?
Yeah, well, a mutual friend of mine, mutual friend of ours, actually, but a really, like, one of my dearest brothers. He has a very well-known podcast, and he never does this. But this one guest, this one episode, he called me up one day. He's like, yo, you have to go listen to this episode. And if you want an introduction to have him on your podcast, this guy named Gardner, I really think that you guys would. And he had nothing romantic in mind. He just knew that I was passionate about the topic and about supporting men. And I was like, wow, I definitely need to listen to this episode because he never sends me one of his episodes to listen to. So I loved it. It was awesome. But I had just had a whole series of guests on talking about men. I was like, okay, I need to give it a little bit. I will definitely circle back to this. So a few months later, I circled back. I was like, okay, make the introduction. So he introduced us. We jumped on a call just to chat, just to connect, see if it was a good fit for the podcast. We had it was supposed to be a 20-minute conversation. We talked for an hour. Still nothing romantic in mind for either one of us, particularly, at least for me.
Talk.
Yeah, we could talk.
Talkers, I love it. That's why we get along.
And then we recorded the podcast a couple weeks later. Great. And he lived in Asheville, North Carolina. And I was happening to come in town in a couple months to write a book with our mutual friend, co-author. Oh, yes, the book is right there.
The book.
My number one fan over here has it in his office.
I love it. That's so sweet.
Being with most of my wife.
And I was like, we decided to just meet up for coffee or something. And we didn't talk at all in between, like a couple months, nothing. And then I just texted him when I was coming in town. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be in town, and you suggested dinner. And I was like,
well, initially it was going to be just
okay.
It's going to be like coffee,
but nothing romantic, right?
Initially it was just going to be, collegial, get together. And then I was like, I'm feeling there's something in this, she's cute. Let's see if she'd be open for dinner. So I did, and I was like, and I'm very clear. I set an intention, like, what is the goal that I want to get out of it? My goal was, I just because I hadn't explicitly said this was a date. So my goal was just to, like, can I get it to be accepted as a date? Like that was it. Like that's, that's as far as we're going to get tonight. That would be great. Short story is, I came to pick her up. She came down in this dress that she had poured herself into. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a date.
She's like, dinner done.
Yes. She got the hint, and
she got the message.
And, then the next piece is, can we share a meal? It's like, are we ordering separately or ordering together? If we're ordering together, we're good to go. We're moving forward, and that was that. And there were so many green flags on that first date for me. Just her kindness, her willingness to see other people, her curiosity, her depth, that just was like, this is it. There's something interesting here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just felt his, like, just deeply safe, grounded energy. He and his consistency, and that consistency, let me tell you, has continued for better and for annoyance sometimes. Not for worse, for annoyance occasionally. It's always for better, just, but seriously, like,
for better on most days.
That's right. But he has just, he shows up consistently like no other man I think I've even heard of. Like he is consistent to a T. And again, the depth, the curiosity, the incredible brilliance. Just yeah, the love and compassion that you have always shown from day one has just always, I felt that deeply from the very first date. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So I want to set the stage because prior to you two meeting, I want to understand kind of where you each were coming from. Emily, I know on our episode when we talked, we kind of went through your story, and I obviously I'd still love to hear that because I think not everyone has listened and heard that, and to know where you came from, the journey that you took to get to where you were, to be ready to meet Kelly, and same for you, Kelly, like the journey that you took and where you were coming from and the healing that you had to kind of do to be ready to meet someone like Emily, you know? So I'd love to kind of hear how your past shaped you and what you learned from it and kind of how you guys got to where you are before you met.
There you go.
Please, ladies first.
So yes, you will hear probably more detail if you listen to our first episode that Beatrice and I did. But I was in a 9-year relationship, and long story short, that relationship ended in a very dramatic fashion when Christmas Eve, his previous girlfriend came to the door to inform me that he had been having an affair off and on for our entire 9 years together. So I ended the relationship and I burned down my entire life. I'm like, sell the house, get rid of almost everything I own, including my car. I ended various friendships and stuff as well that I just recognized were no longer aligning with who I wanted to be. And I moved across the globe and was like, okay, this is my time. I need to focus on me. I need to figure out where I co-created this clusterfuck. What did I do to call?
Yeah, and that's so big of you to like sit and ask yourself that. Like a lot of people don't, right? They go through something traumatic like that and then they move on to the next thing and they've never sat down to also say, what role did I play into this? So I love and appreciate that. That was your mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. And the very first thing I did was hire a relationship coach.
Yes.
I'm like, okay. And I worked with a therapist and stuff as well. But I was just really clear. Like I need to have my blind spots pointed out. I need to figure out where I'm going and what I can do differently moving forward, because I'm not going through this again. And I need to really use this as a massive opportunity for growth. And that was how I saw it from the beginning. And I also really saw it as an opportunity to open more deeply to trust, because I saw where and could feel where it would be very easy for me to just completely shut down, not really want to trust anyone again. And I had to hold on to the vision of what I wanted my life to look and feel like. And I wanted it to look and feel like love, no matter what form it came in. And I refused to give away my power to a situation or set of circumstances that would just completely shut me down and not have me trust anyone ever again. So I had a lot of clarity on what I needed to do. Now, the journey to make that happen was sometimes not as easy as it sounds. It's something up with a beautiful little bow like that. There was no single like aha moment. It was an ongoing process. It was an ongoing journey. Sometimes it still is. There are still, particular aspects of that wounding that can come up in our relationship that then need to be dealt with in the moment. But I'm really proud of how far I've come. And by the time Kelly and I met, I was actually in the process of writing a book on growth-based relationships. And we went on our first date, like midway to writing that book. And I was having some insecurity come up while writing that book of who am I to write a book on relationships when I feel like I've done all this work and I know how far I've come, but I still haven't actually created the healthy relationship that I know I'm capable of and that I know I'm calling in. And then Kelly arrived and turned everything upside down. And I'm like, oh shit, healthy relationships are harder than I
do exist. Oh gosh. I can only imagine. Did you ever doubt that you would meet somebody? Like when you were kind of going through that, you go through the heartbreak and then you're going through that kind of internal journey, right? I think as you're coming out of it a little bit, did you ever think like maybe I'm not going to meet that person, or kind of did you ever have doubts?
In my worst moments, sure, there would be doubts that would come up. But one of the questions I unpack with women all the time is this intuition or is this anxiety? And it was you almost exclusively only when I was coming from a place of fear and scarcity and doubt that would arise. Overall, I was like, no, I actually really trust that it's coming for me. I don't know when. It could be 10 years from now. It could be 20 years from now. It could be next week. I don't know. And I'm also not going to go through every date going, is he the one? Like that.
Yeah.
That kind of energy is not what I'm about. You have to be more secure in your sense of self to be able to move forward in any relationship in a positive way, because you still have to hang on to that sense of self after any relationship begins. In fact, it's a lot harder to maintain that sense of self sometimes once someone else comes into the picture. So did I have doubt? Sure, occasionally. But overall at my core, I had deep trust that it would happen when it was supposed to happen.
Yeah. And I think so much of that was probably a result of the work that you did like previously, the work that you put yourself through, and you gave yourself time to be on your own.
Yes, that is so important.
I think that's key.
Yeah, I think you and I
you weren't
before too. Yeah. It's I often tell people that one of the most powerful things you can do is to be okay being alone. Go travel alone. Go take yourself for dinner dates alone. Go to the movies alone. Test out what that feels like for you, because if you can be okay being alone, you won't hang on to a relationship that isn't working, or grasp onto a relationship that is working but suffocate it if you're okay being alone. There's a lot of wisdom to be found there, and you need to be able to hold yourself and hold that container for yourself without being dependent on another human being.
Absolutely. I tell that to friends very often because it's a huge one. I think jumping from one thing to another, while a lot of people want to argue and say, oh no, I feel fine, I'm good, I'm over it. You may be over it, right? But you don't know the residual things that are still hanging on from it, right? From that. So I think there is so much wisdom in taking that time and really, really spending time with yourself and being good with yourself. I think that's so key, and calling in that right partner and calling in someone, worth pursuing and being in a relationship with.
Yeah, so beautiful.
Kelly, I'd love to hear about your journey prior to meeting Emily.
Yeah, so
I know Emily is very well now.
That's it. Shorthand is I fell down the steps and hit my head on every step on the way down to get here.
I've never heard you put it that way.
So this is my third marriage.
Okay.
My first marriage was when I was 30. And we got married because we were having a child. I wanted fatherhood, something that always felt really important to me. And when we discovered that we were pregnant, or she was pregnant, that I wanted to do it the right way. So it seemed from culture the right way was getting married, though we didn't have a lot in common. I was at Caltech or Cal Arts at the time. She was at Caltech. I was young enough to still think that opposites attract, and but we also really didn't have a whole lot in common. And that led to probably the most toxic relationship I've ever been in. And at the time, I had been teaching nonviolent communication for quite a long time, and realized that I didn't really know anything about it. It was all a intellectual approach that I was teaching other people. But it really, God is in everything. That as soon as my experience, as soon as I go to teach something, I will be presented with the obstacle that will allow me to really own it. And so I was like, oh, you think you know about nonviolent communication? Here you go. I'm going to put you in a new relationship with the child, both in grad school. Go. Right. And so I learned a lot. Through that journey. And that ultimately led me to personal development work, and a deep dive into really understanding how it's not just about the communication and language that you're using, but really about unearthing my own wounding, my own challenges, my own things, and how I'm playing that out in my life, and particularly in my most intimate relationships. I did what everybody does when they live in California. I went and got my yoga teacher training. Went to Indy and met my second wife in that process. And we were studying Bhakti yoga, which is yoga devotion, teaching right there on 2nd Street. And, and started a relationship from a really beautiful place of understanding, of deepening in what it really meant to be in devotion. And that was a really eye-opening experience for me. And I thought that was going to be my forever relationship. We had our second child. But in the process, after about 7 years, she discovered that she was gay. And so that was a major upheaval in my life. And as I, that led to me wanting to essentially leave Los Angeles and eventually moving to Austin. And eventually when my ex-wife, my son decided they wanted to move to Asheville, making the big leap to move all the way back to the East Coast. I'm originally from North Carolina. And so I will say that those first years were, I lived in California for 20 years, never saw a winter. And
oh gosh, yeah.
Back to the East Coast, it wasn't just the experience of literal winter, but the metaphoric, emotional winter that I went through. It was really deep, and a lot of shedding, a lot of loss, and a lot of processing. That, and I was in a place when we met where I had also said that I would never get married again. Never say never. And not that I wasn't, the vision of long-term committed relationship has always been very strong for me. But, going through divorce twice and seeing the impact of the state being involved in a relationship was not something that I necessarily had a strong love for. And then, as I said, God is in everything. And so, of course, as soon as I said that, God brought me this beautiful, amazing Canadian and made it really clear that, well, if you're going to be together, the only pathway really to that is through marriage. And so that really created the space for me to reconsider and confront the challenges that I was facing in terms of committing in that way and really integrate it in a positive way. And so, long story short, here I am at 40. How old was I?
What, when we met?
Yeah.
46.
Thank you.
I'm like, now
she's the number one.
Right. Man, here I'm at 46. I've got 2 children. I'm living by myself. And, there's a piece of this from a cultural standpoint, which is I'm broken goods. I'm going to have to make up for all of the things that I carry in order to be in a relationship. And that was an early conversation and a journey that we confronted coming into relationship. And so, I continue to learn and grow through this relationship in ways that I didn't even know were possible, in the sense of, marrying a relationship coach is amazing. Except when it's not. It's very confronting. But like I said, it's through the confrontations, the challenges, if I accept them, that really present the opportunity for growth. And that's the place that we really come together on, is that idea of growth-based relationships, but a growth-based life that really, if I'm not growing, I'm dying. Continuing to learn that journey together has just been a tremendous gift.
Gosh, isn't that the beauty of relationship, though? It is such a mirror. It's so confronting.
Absolutely.
And it really, it invites you in to level up. And not everyone takes that invitation, right? But man, when you do, it's so beautiful. And I love that I get to kind of watch that between you two and see that. I'm curious, what were some early challenges you had that maybe surprised you both? Because, you both were kind of in a similar space. She's obviously with the relationship coach, but were there any things early on in the relationship that surprised you both? Because you guys were long distance. I mean, right? Emily, you were still in Canada?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was still in Canada for the first year and a half of our relationship. Almost year and a half. Yeah. Close to it. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we went back and forth and we actually made it work really well. And I actually, multiple people have been asking us lately about what we think about long distance relationships. And I don't want to speak for you, but I think we're pretty much on the same page about this. Like, for us, it would vary by couple, but for us, it was actually a huge gift. And I really actually think that it allowed us to create the depth so quickly because we were long distance. There was a back and forth, and we would kind of do, give or take, like 1 month on, 1 month off approximately. And it was more me coming here because of the boys and everything else, and it just made more sense that way. But it was really beautiful. Like, this man would FaceTime me every single night that we were away, every single night. I did not ask for that. Like, he would just, from day one, he started FaceTiming me every night. I'm like, who is this guy?
It was like being in high school, you know? You're like, you want to phone like for 3 hours at night.
You're like giddy.
2 a.m. Yeah.
Trying to speak the phone on the side, you know?
We would watch movies together. Like, we'd like time it to hit play at the same time in 2 different countries. It was hilarious.
Netflix does not have in Canada, you know?
Yeah.
They don't?
I know there are differences.
Wait,
yes. Oh, don't worry. On a daily
that.
basis, we unpack the micro cultural differences between Canada and the US. It's shocking.
Amazing how many language differences we have. We share the same language.
It is wild, actually. But so that's one challenge that we could certainly talk about.
Yeah, the distance.
But the other thing,
The language.
yeah, literally, like, just yesterday we ran into the way I say something, and he's like, "What did you say?" And what's wrong with you? Or one of us will say a word, and I'm like, "What is that? What did you say?" And I'm like, "That word does not exist in Canada. I don't know what you're talking about." So that was definitely a challenge. But another challenge is I don't know. I guess it sort of surprised me. I never necessarily expected to end up with someone with kids. I just never really thought about it per se. I wasn't against it. I was kind of ambivalent about it. I just never considered what that would potentially mean. And I'd only ever dated one other guy with kids, but his kids were grown. Like, so it was kind of a different scenario. And when you and I started dating, to your point about feeling like you were broken and had like this baggage, like broken goods, basically. One of my wounds, because this is what always happens in relationship, the perfectly, I've told couples about this too, the perfectly paired wounds always come together and rub up against each other. And one of my wounds was not feeling fully chosen. I had never felt fully chosen in a relationship. And I saw how much this incredible man was and continues to carry every single day. Like, we have a 17-year-old, we have a 9-year-old, 2 ex-wives that he has an incredible relationship with. I have a great relationship with them as well, and everything else. But the amount that he holds, and that's just scratching the top of the iceberg for him, I recognized so fully, I'm not going to come first a lot of times. And I'm not really supposed to when there are kids. It's one thing if I was the boy's mom, but it's a little bit of a different dynamic when we get into a blending family situation. And I'm like, I expect the boys to come above me. But then will I feel fully chosen? And I need to get that need met as well. And we had a really big conversation about it. And I'd love for you to kind of share, how that conversation went on your end as well. But I finally sort of got it. There was sort of this download moment in the way that he explained. He'd never really framed it to me before as the vulnerability of sharing how he was kind of feeling like damaged goods somehow. And he set a boundary. He drew a line in the sand of like, I'm not going to show up that way and be treated that way, given how much I bring to the table and how I care for you and show up for you. And I was like, wow, like you're right. You're absolutely right. And can I also get my needs met? Am I getting my needs met? And I'm like, wow, I am. I'm being more met than I ever have in my entire life. And he makes me feel more chosen than I had ever even dreamed possible, while also, raising 2 incredibly amazing boys and being a just absolutely extraordinary father and all of the other things he's holding. And he can still make me feel chosen. Like, damn, I'll marry that. What came up for you in that conversation?
I think that, it was very clear for me to set a very clear boundary of, though I'm bringing, we all bring our wounding and our challenges into relationship. Right. But it's important to say I'm not here to. I don't have to overcompensate for who I am. I don't have to make up
Mm-hmm.
for who I am. But on the flip side, it's I also do. I bring a lot. I bring a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but I bring a lot. I bring a
Mm-hmm.
full family. I bring a lot of amazing, I'd say my greatest source of wealth in this life is my community. I'm surrounded by incredible men primarily, but my children, my family. I've done a really amazing job at continuing to hold that together. And so it was just saying, okay, listen, this is going to be a challenge, but this is going to be the gift. And if you're willing to accept the gift, then you also have to accept the challenge. And so that was kind of the line in the sand for me. And I do believe that it's, when I teach embodied masculine leadership, it's really about, being the space that we're seeking to create in the relationship. And so,
Mm-hmm.
it was just another challenge. I'd say that, getting back to the piece around, the distance. Yeah, I think that there's a beautiful piece in that, which is we get to really get to know each other on a deeper
Mm-hmm.
level. It's just lots of hours of talking and building that kind of depth. But also the shadow of that is what I came to understand is that I actually preferred long distance relationship in some ways, because it still provided freedom. It still provided, it was like the best of both worlds. And that's what I had as a single dad. I got to be a dad half the time, and then I got to be a single guy doing my life the other half of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there was something that I was seeing in that, which was resisting, this consistency of long-term relationship. It was great to always have.
Mm-hmm.
I love having great, long-term relationship in little pockets. And then,
Mm-hmm.
and so, once we actually, moved in together and started building a life together, it was really revealing to how much, I was creating structures to have my sovereignty, but not asking for it, not really creating the dialogue around what my needs were. I just was creating convenient ways of getting them met without having to ask anybody for them. And so that continues to be a journey and learning in that process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what was that? What was that like for the two of you to get married, to combine lives, to move in together, to, as I imagine that's its own challenges. Like you mentioned, you built a life that was very singular. It was very for you and for your kids. Emily, and then you've been on a journey where you had also been kind of in your own lane, working on your book, working on your practice, like really, so I'm sure there had to been some confronting moments of like physically actually combining lives, not just on paper, but like, in person.
Yeah. I think for me, one of the challenges is in the dynamic. Ideally, moving into a new relationship, it would be ideal that we create, a new space that is ours together. And that's, still a goal of ours. But, I have a family home, I have, my kids, and, uprooting them is another, conversation. And so when we came together, it was in my country, it was in my home, it was with my kids, it was, in many ways, not intentionally, but just through circumstances, it was on my terms. And so that created a dynamic that, there was an inequality in our dynamic that has been really challenging to navigate and to continue to, play with. How do we continue to show up for each other as equals in this external dynamic that has been created for us, where there is a certain amount of inequality built in.
Yeah. I will say that like our first 3 months together were definitely our most challenging. And neither one of us really expected that, like to the degree to which it presented challenges. Neither one of us were really expecting or prepared for that. And on my side of things, you bring a very strong, independent woman. who's used to holding shit down for herself, and
Mhm.
but also is a recovering people pleaser and will do everything she can to make sure that everyone else's needs are taken care of before her own.
Mhm.
Then you add in 2 kids that I'm like, oh, here's 2 more people. I need to make sure that their
Mhm.
needs are met, as well. So I'm then trying to pretzel myself into this dynamic of like 3 other humans' nervous systems
Mm.
and not doing a great job at taking care of mine in the
Mm.
process. And I kind of saw the writing on the wall a little bit with that. I think I even said to you a month or 2 before I moved here. I'm like, I may need some gentle, loving reminders. You're overextending yourself. I see where like you're not taking care of you. But
Yeah.
it was a lot to adjust to. And I also did not I very much underestimated the challenges of moving countries, moving in together,
Mhm.
going from 0 to 2 kids overnight, getting married and throwing a natural disaster in on top of that. I'm like, "Oh, this is all in 6 months. This is a lot."
Wow.
And trying to run a business, which I essentially just ended up putting on pause because I'm like,
Mm.
I do not have the capacity right now to hold more than I already am. I literally didn't have the physical, emotional, or mental energy to hold anything else.
Mhm.
My bucket was so full already, and I didn't really want to do that. And then I started feeling like I was also losing my sense of self because my business is such a channel of my personal
Yeah.
expression that then I just felt like I was falling apart from the inside out, which then also translated into our relationship. So it sort of became a little bit of a vicious circle there that we had many hard conversations. We had and still sometimes are having conversations around evaluating and reevaluating where each of our needs need to be met in different ways and
Mhm.
negotiating what that looks like in a way where everyone wins. Um, and also really just adapting to the fact that, yeah, if I take care of me, everyone else
Mhm.
thrives. It's
Absolutely.
really ultimately like my ultimate lesson, I feel like in this part of this particular part of my life that I am finally really starting to integrate more deeply. I'm like, "Oh, I'm starting to get it." Like if I
For sure.
actually truly take care of me, the boys are happier, Kelly's happier, I'm happier. Everyone wins.
Yeah. And that's such a discipline too. And I think so much of that comes from the time that you spent figuring you out.
Mm,
Because what I seem to find is a lot of people don't even really know what they need. They'll feel off and they don't actually know what it is that they need to make themselves feel better or to make themselves feel more themselves or, whatever the case may be. And so I think this is such a testament of valuing that time when you are single and really getting to know yourself, getting to know your needs, what makes you happy, what makes you grounded, what makes you feel like yourself, like what are those buckets.
mm.
And so I think it's such a testament to the time that you guys both spent in those spaces, understanding, well, something's coming up for me. And and the challenge is then to communicate it, which it sounds like you guys are working through. And because the practice of it is different than the head knowledge of it.
Yeah. Emily actually did a process of marrying herself within one of her groups
did.
before
That's
she
true.
married.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
tell me
I
more.
was like, I need to marry me before I marry anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
was really clear on that and making those commitments to myself and holding my little girl in that. Being
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, yeah, I know that you like Kelly and talking to my little girl. I'm like, I know you like
Mm-hmm.
Kelly and that he's earned your trust and stuff. And don't panic in hard moments because at the end of the day, I've still got you and I need to. I need to be the one who still has her at the end of the day. I can't expect him to come save any part of
Mm-hmm.
me. He can meet me, but
Mm-hmm.
he can't save me. That's my job.
Yeah, that's huge. Kelly, how was that for you? Because while it was in your own space, how was seeing kind of Emily go through all of that,
You know,
her transition?
yeah, I mean, it was, I think we were both going through a transition. It
Mhm.
wasn't just, her going through. I mean, this was a conversation we literally just had yesterday, that, there was a lot that she was letting go of in
Mm-hmm.
terms of coming here, moving in. But there was also a lot that I've been letting go of in terms of, this was my home. This was
Yeah.
my sanctity. This was my safe space. And largely this was the landing space that created the safety for me to heal after my divorce.
Yeah.
So this was my sanctuary. And so, inviting someone else into your sanctuary also means that I have to let go of areas of control over how things happen. I have to be open to how somebody else does things. I have to, I have to be trusting of, how you use my pots and pans and
Yeah.
things
That's gonna be my struggle. Gosh, I already like I'm like, oh, just someone else touching my things. I'm gonna be hard.
Yeah,
It's
right.
vulnerable. It's incredibly
I'm like,
vulnerable.
yeah.
And so,
Especially as you get older and older, you have your own space and everything you've built your whole life around you,
yeah, well, and because I was in a marriage and a long term, I there were also patterns that I was aware of that I had replicated. That my ex-wife had moved in with me, and again it was my house and my things again, and
Yeah.
and so I had created a dynamic unconsciously in that relationship where I was the paternal figure for my partner. And we were playing out these, father-daughter dynamics in our relationship. And so very conscious to not to replicate those things. But, that involved me kind of taking a step back in a lot of areas and not being so involved or micromanaging in certain ways that was really uncomfortable. To really just surrender, and I'm still working on that one for sure. That's a area of growth that I'm continuing to lean into every day. To surrender to what it really means to be in partnership. I think that's always been my greatest desire, is to be in partnership, but it's easy to say and hard to do because partnership literally means that I'm not going to get things in the way that I want them all the time. I'm going to have to make some, and I've very carefully set up my life so that I have complete control over all factors impacting me. And so the surrender to that has been, such a blessing and a lesson. And, I said earlier, when we were speaking off, is, God is in everything. And I do believe that, that the presence of God is the pathway to surrender. That is constantly being reminded of me. It's like, you gotta let go. You don't have it all. Give it up to something bigger than yourself. And that has been a continued lesson.
Yeah. Life it's just, in a way, it's so much easier when you can let go and you can surrender, because we think we have this control. But I always tell people, I'm like, to me, I think of control, it's an illusion. We really don't. We don't actually have control over much ourselves. Maybe, yes, but kind of in the external world, we don't have that control. And I think by feeling like we do, it's an illusion that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I'm also curious, what have you guys learned from one another that was kind of surprising?
Oof.
Either about yourselves or about the other, but what were some lessons that, not even only in your marriage, but just in your relationship in its entirety?
Do you have an answer to that one right away?
Well, the first thing that pops up is a continuation to a certain degree of what I was just talking about, which is, I've really learned a lot about how my brain, I often say this, the brain is a wonderful servant to a horrible master. And I have a really big one that loves information and knowledge. And I have been really successful in life at using, or unsuccessful in ways, at using that brain to navigate around me. Like I surround myself in communities that mirror back and hold me accountable. But I also have found really creative ways to navigate around them, to not be seen, to overthink, overanalyze, uh, how I'm really showing up. And there is no more powerful mirror than the most intimate relationships. And,
Yeah.
this is where I get seen the most. And
Mm-hmm.
it's revealed how much I'm still overthinking, overanalyzing, and, creating structures to be right.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Ooh,
and
that's very vulnerable.
yeah, and it's something I say often. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be in relationship?
Yeah.
But teaching it and being it are two very different things, and so being called forward in that on a regular basis has been a great gift.
Thank you
Wow.
for sharing that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's really vulnerable. I really appreciate you saying that, because I think that's a challenge that I think a lot of people face. And I think when you make such a big commitment to somebody else, we forget that there's kind of a mourning process with it. Like I think people forget to mourn their singleness, their previous life. And then they hold on to that, and it builds resentment, right? As they enter in this new relationship. And like, I just want to give people permission, like when you make a big move, like it's okay to mourn that side of your life. It's okay to, mourn the singleness, the times that you could do whatever you want, and you didn't have to account for anybody. And, there is a process. It doesn't mean you don't love the person. It doesn't mean you're not excited about the prospect of of a new life with somebody. But I think to your point, I think it's just so important to also acknowledge that was the life I had, and to be like, that's going to change, and there's going to be maybe some sadness around it, and just kind of holding space for, like, that life was a cocoon for you. It was a safe space for you. And so I just thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of people do struggle with that, and I think they don't want to admit it because they think it's selfish, or they think if they say something like that, then it's because I don't love the person, I don't want to be with the person, or I'm not happy with this person. I think people really struggle to kind of admit it.
Yeah, I often say there's gifts in the grief, and there's grief in the gifts, right? That they both coexist.
Yes.
And we only get to receive the gifts through honoring the grief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's really beautiful. I think for me, some of the things, I've learned so much from this man, from this relationship, and just the reflections that he offers. He is also an excellent mirror, sometimes more of a mirror than I want in a particular moment, but damn if he isn't often hitting the nail on the head and giving me something that I need to look at. And it's also why I take what he says. I look at what he reflects back to me really seriously. And I can't always in the moment if I'm feeling like overwhelmed or flooded or anything like that, but I do sit with it. And after the fact, I'm like, okay, what is there? Or is there even a shred of truth in this? And there's a couple things that are coming to mind. One is that I have really learned how much my energy can shift an entire dynamic, and just how loud my energy is. And I've been told this for years about, like, your face is yelling, basically. I think that I'm neutral, and there is nothing neutral. Kelly and my mother will speak to this, and my best friend will all speak to this. There is not a lot about me that is like neutral. Like, my energy yells really loudly. So
I love it.
Right? Which is honest. Like, it's very honest, but I'm also learning that I don't have to stay stuck in an emotion either. Because I also used to do that a lot. I would just kind of like go into an emotion, then just kind of like stay there and let me feel my feels. And actually, I am fully capable and have the power a lot of the time to shift that within myself. There are certain practices I might need to do in order to do that. And I'm not talking about the spiritual bypassing or, anything like that. Yes, feel the feelings, but do you need to actually sit in it? And are you going to get what you want? Not in a manipulative way, but just, are you going to actually create a space, an opening for connection to happen if you're coming at things with shitty energy? And you actually have so much more power than you think that you do. So a bigger theme around that has been reckoning with my own sense of power from within, and where I can give it away. And just sort of let some be, in the name of being agreeable, that inner good girl will come out, the inner people pleaser that is in recovery mode, and just kind of take over. And then all parts of me will end up creating stories about him or about the relationship in particular moments. And they're just stories. They're not actual truth. So another big realization I've had is around giving away my power, where I get to actually step into my sense of power, where he actually really wants me to step into my power. He doesn't want me to outsource my power. He wants me in my full power. That was why he chose me in the first place. It's why we chose each other. And he said something to me in one of our worst arguments. I've never told you this. That it was right before I moved here, and we had one of the worst fights we have ever had. And it's because I was just so overwhelmed. I was in so much fear. I was like, oh my God, am I making the right choice here? Like, it was just like this cascade that was happening. And he said, you have a lot of growing up to do. And I was livid.
That's hard to hear. That is really hard to hear.
You remember saying that?
Don't. I'm like,
okay. You actually did apologize in the moment too, because I held such a strong boundary around that and was so livid with you. Ooh. You actually did apologize to me within that same argument, but it stayed with me. And just in the last couple of weeks, I went through this like big coaching intensive and stuff, and there was just a lot that came up that I was just shedding and just seeing old patterns and stuff. And that came up for me. And I'm like, yeah, you were right. Because there are so many instances where you have pointed out, and I have noticed, where my little girl has been in the driver's seat. And I am incredibly emotionally intelligent and emotionally mature. My husband will be the first one to tell you that, and tell anyone that. And I had and continue to have more leveling up to do above the level that I started this relationship in. And I've had the gift of having this space to level up massively and have my inner grown-ass woman actually start driving the boat. And that's a level of maturity that I wish for everyone, and that I continue to strive more and more to deepen into. But the ability to hold all the things, and also be able to put aside, if we are having a little thing, be able to put it aside to do life together with the kids and with everything else that we hold, with the businesses, with everything. And then it doesn't mean that we're going to sweep it under the rug. It just means, hey, we're just putting this aside for a minute because we love each other. We've got other things to do, and we both have the maturity and the capacity to hold both. Yeah. We can hold that, and we can hold this. And this doesn't mean that we're falling apart. It means that we're putting a pin in it till later, and resting and trusting in what we have built together. We've worked through every single fight we've ever had and come through stronger because of it. Can you rest in that knowledge? And I think that also requires a capacity for trust in yourself, first and foremost, that is absolutely necessary to be able to create the kind of relationship that at least I personally wish to continue co-creating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. I want to add something to this. There is no rugs in our house. Literally.
Well, there's nothing like side rugs, but
no. I mean, metaphorically.
Yeah.
There's no rugs.
Yeah,
If you have two people that are empathetic and
highly intuitive,
like just like, you know, if I say, you know, like, like, what was that? Right. And it's like, oh man, you know, like you can't get away with anything.
You can't hide. Yeah.
And I'd say that that's been one of our biggest lessons is, you know, it's not sweeping it under the rug, but choosing to give my partner grace and space to work through what may be coming up without having to like, oh, what's that about? What's coming up here? Like what,
Mm-hmm.
that I
Yeah.
think has been one of the really biggest journeys that I've really discovered is like, not everything has to be worked through right there in the moment. Sometimes
Yeah.
we just get to see it, try to hold the most compassion that I can for it, and really trust in my partner's ability to work through that and come back without having to, to literally hit every single challenge, conflict, in the moment.
Yeah.
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 And I think that's such a testament to a strong sense of self in those moments. Because to be able to give someone that space to work it out, to take the time to like, if there were, is you have to have a strong sense of self in that, to know that I'm not going to take it personal. And if it is personal, that I trust that they're going to come to me and communicate whatever it is. And I'm not going to push it. I'm not going to force it. So I think you brought up so many different things, like the importance of communicating, right? Just even be able to communicate where you're at, and the importance of having a strong sense of self, and the importance of trusting one another. And even just the beauty of you guys leveling each other up. Like I'm like speechless, because I just think it's such a beautiful thing, and I'm honored to like get to hear it from you guys and learn, because I'm getting a lot out of this, and I think it's amazing. I really want to ask this question, because I feel like people always ask, like, how do you know this is the person you want to be with? How did you guys know that early on? Because I love, we've gotten to get a little view into your relationship, and I think it's beautiful, and I honor that, and I thank you guys for that. But I'm also really curious, yeah, how did you guys know early on? Like, what were the signs? Because I think a lot of time people ask, a lot of my listeners are dating, they're in kind of the early stages, and people always want to know, well, how do you know? How do I know it's the right person? How do I know it's the person I want to be with? That question comes up so much. And so I'm curious, from either of you guys' perspectives, yeah, how did you guys know?
I'm going to let you take this one first.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You go for it.
Well, we do talk about this moment that we had that was really transcending reality.
I don't think we ever actually have talked about this publicly.
We haven't. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Share it though. Yeah. That's what I was thinking too. Yeah.
Well, there was this one moment that we had early when we were dating, that, we were just facing each other, and, literally we both had this just overwhelming emotional feeling. Tears just started falling from our faces. We were shaking, and it was like the presence of something greater than us just like came in, it was like, what was that? I don't know what that is, but it really, there's something about that moment that was just like, there's a presence of something greater than us that is here to give us a clue. But it was just a clue, and, very early in our relationship, we would, we were joking about this the other day. Early on, I said it was too early to say I love you. So I would just hold up the finger, when instead of saying, I'm like,
on FaceTime.
Yeah, FaceTime. Like when she said something that was just so endearing, I'd be like, that's one right there. Second time, she's like, ooh, two today, tonight, ooh, 3 tonight, So there was definitely a really strong, sense of bond. But, at the end of the day, when we ask this question, how do you know? You never do. There will never be enough data points to prove that this is my person, that this is the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with. The idea that like I will know, I think is the falsehood that leaves people always wanting, always desiring something else. The truth of the matter for me is that I don't know, I choose. At some point in time, I just say, I choose to believe that this is the person that I love, that I'm going to commit to being with the rest of my life. And I'm willing to do the work that it takes to get there. I'm willing to have the patience to go through the challenges that we're going to face. But knowing is never something that is 100%. There will always be doubts. But I choose, I make a commitment. And for me, once I make that commitment, there's no going back. It's only going forward. It's only what is the work that we need to do. So, when Emily will talk about, being chosen, it always comes from, that's the core piece of being able to choose my partner, is really just saying, I am choosing to believe. Like, how do we know there's God? I don't know. There will never be enough data points, but I choose to believe it. And as long as I choose to believe it, it shows up and it is a part of my life. So, I think love and relationship is the same. I choose it, I believe in it, and it becomes true because of the force of my belief.
Yeah. And I really resonate with that so deeply. And one of the many qualities and values that Kelly and I both share is the commitment to the work and the commitment to growth and the commitment to each other. Like, when both of us are very similar in the sense that when we make this kind of commitment, we are also simultaneously so committed to the growth and committed to, at least for me, love, that I trust that we will be able to work through whatever needs to be worked through.
Absolutely.
And there were, I could spend all day listing the incredible qualities that I recognized in you and all of those things. But to your point, yeah, there can always be doubts that can come up. Really bad fight, I'm like, whoo, did I make the right choice? But I still trust in us. And I still trust in what we have created. I still trust in what we are going to continue to create. And I believe in this relationship and in this man and in myself to show up in this relationship. I think it has to come from sense of self first, belief in self first, and then just continue to grow from there. But I've always loved Kelly's explanation, way of framing it about, the commitment to the belief. And he shared that very early on in our relationship. And I just really think that that's true, because it's also about what story you choose to buy into. If you decide to let a story grow roots about, this person isn't my person, what evidence are you going to look for naturally to support that belief? That's by definition confirmation bias. So if you are going to, what beliefs are you going to choose to water? In other words, I think that that's the most important thing that you can look at within yourself. And that's something that I continue to see where I can create stories. It's another huge thing I've learned in this relationship, of where I can create stories so easily and not even identify it as a story, even though I've been teaching this for a really long time. I'm like, oh no, there's deeper level stories that I'm coming from though. It's like, oh, this story is like surface level, but look at the story that's underneath it, and then just going through those layers.
No, and I think it's such. Oh, sorry, Kelly, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's important to add one caveat to that, which is, even on this journey, there has to be some space for me to continue to grow in my relationship. When people ask me, when do I know it's over? I always say when there is no longer space for my own individual growth in this relationship, I do need to be selfish. I do need to be selfish in that way and continue to look for, how is this continuing to support my growth? Have I done everything that I can to grow to be the very best person? Have I utilized this relationship to do that? Otherwise, if I leave this relationship, I'm just going to carry that into the next one. So I might as well work it out here.
Such a good point. I'm glad that you mentioned that about like the individual growth. You still have to be true to you. And sure, if the relationship is growing, but you feel dead inside as an individual, that's not going to work. So yeah, I'm really glad that you mentioned that. Yeah, it's an important point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such a beautiful point of, you don't just stumble into a good relationship. You have to create it. You have to build it. And to do that, you have to choose it, right? Like you were saying, you have to choose that this is what I'm committing to, and I'm committing to the growth that's required for it to continue and to blossom. But I think it's such a good point. We also have to make sure we're looking at ourselves and making sure we're also feeding ourselves and growing as individuals in the relationship. Because a better you is a better wife, a better husband, a better father, better friend, and it's a ripple effect, right? So,
for any women out there, I will just add this, who get stressed about their men doing men's work. Because I actually see this a lot. Women being like, well, what do you guys talk about? And like, what are you doing? And it's like this whole thing. I see this with women sometimes. And I'm like, girl, send him, like give him,
send him.
Like, send him, please send him. The man that I get back after every single men's retreat he goes on, I am just like, I get so excited for him to go on a men's retreat. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see what version comes home to me this time.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
it's
and
so
you like
powerful.
root each other on. You're like, you support each other's growth. It's not just like, oh, I'm just going to give you space to do it. It's like,
Yeah.
no, I support it. I want it. I'm like
Yes.
your cheerleader. I'm there to like lift you up and I want you to succeed. I want you to be the best version. I think when we enter a relationship, we don't want that. It's like, what does that say about ourselves? Like, that's a red flag for you. Like, you need to be doing the work more. You know, it's not them, it's you at that
Yeah.
point. So that's the beauty of partnership. It's not just like you, again, we talked about this earlier. You don't cling on to the relationship to validate you and to give you worth and value, right? It's like you're two individuals becoming partners, right? And that in that you support each other, you love each other, you want each other to grow, you know, but that requires, again, it requires a strong sense of self. Like you have to be grounded in you in order for that to happen. So I love that you guys are such a testament of that. And it's a testament. It's not going to be perfect, right? It's not going to be without argument or without, you know, all those things, because that's part of life. That's life. I don't know why we have this idea that it's going to be perfect, you know, and I thank you guys for the grace that you have with one another. And to share that with everybody, to share the ins and outs and the valleys and the highs and it's all there. It's just how you navigate it.
Yeah, and it is perfect.
Mhm.
You know, one of my mantra that I share often is that everything in life is already perfect. It's just up to you to see the perfection in it.
Yeah.
Even in the fights, even in the challenges, even in the obstacles, there's a perfection that is above and beyond me that I get to see in that, and through that I get to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Thank you guys so much for coming on today. I feel so privileged and I feel like I've gotten so much out of this myself. So I just thank you guys for your time and for sharing your story with me and for all the
Aw.
listeners.
And thank you for creating this space to
Yeah.
talk about what is perhaps one of the most important things in our lives, which is the relationships that we create, and how can we do a better
Absolutely.
job with that. So thank you for
Absolutely.
making the space and taking the incredible amount of time and investment it makes to put this podcast out. So thank you.
Yeah, so appreciate you, Beatrice. Thank you.
Aw, thank you guys so much. And for everyone listening, we'll definitely make sure to include links to both of your guys' practices if anyone's interested in working with you or getting in touch with you. I'll have all that in the show notes. So
Awesome.
thank you guys.
Beautiful. Thank you.